liftoff.
Stop scrolling. I understand the Trump supporters. I can make it make sense. But you have to trust me and you have to listen. I'm gonna be your all's translator. I'm gonna make this make sense. And I have to tell you right now, we have a common enemy. We have to stop fighting. This is what they want. We have to stop fighting. Stop fighting. Stop. Some of y'all are so close. Some of y'all are so close and you don't see it, but I'm gonna help you. You guys know we can't trust the government. You know we can't trust the news. You've seen them make people of color look bad when they're innocent, and you've seen them put a smiling photo of Ghislaine Maxwell, a fucking monster, when they arrested her. You know how people who cheat in relationships will accuse you of doing the same thing because they're insecure? It's called projection. You can't directly call out the Nazis when they own everything. So you have to be careful and you have to send codes. And they hate that. They hate it. The good guys are bad and the bad guy is good.
He's born ready. Welcome to the Make Earth Great Again podcast. My name is Josh.
And I am Eric.
And today we are joined with a very special guest, Miss Judith Rose. Judith, how are you today?
Hi. Very good. Thank you.
Yeah, good. So for those of you who may or may not know her, Judith is, in my eyes anyway, an online influencer, researcher, and truth seeker. So, Jude, it's really great to have you on the show. But before we, there's lots to talk about. There's lots and lots to talk about. So I'm super happy to have you here. Before we get there, Mr. Eric, how are you today?
I am very well. Thank you for asking. I feel like it's been a while since we've done this. I know you went solo last time. I'm sure you crushed it. I feel like a lot has been happening since then. I'm excited. Tomorrow morning, very early, I get to go to Nova Scotia. I get to see a friend of mine, a best friend that I haven't seen in 15 years. Another best friend, Josh. Don't get too jealous.
Oh, no.
I haven't seen him in 15 years, and he's getting married in Nova Scotia. And I've always wanted to go to Nova Scotia.
Wow.
So that's going to be a lot of fun. And then my son turned 1 on Canada Day, so that was a lot of fun. And just it's a lot of positivity going around. And I've been smiling from ear to ear for the past few days. So, and I've been looking forward to this one for sure. So I'm excited to be here.
Man.
That's so nice.
Yeah, it sounds like you had a great week, man. So for our listeners, I want to tell a quick story about how I discovered Judith. Do you prefer Jude or Judith?
Oh, Jude's fine. Yeah.
Jude? All right. How I discovered Jude. Here we go.
Hey, Jude.
Oh, you probably get that all the time, eh?
No, yeah. It's okay.
Yeah. So basically, it was really, really interesting because obviously everybody knows the elephant in the room, the pandemic, right? So we're still kind of in it. And I feel like a lot of people went through some kind of experience. And during my personal experience, when I started to really look into things and question things and whatever, I made a little documentary. And this is news to pretty much everyone because I didn't really put it out there. I just uploaded it as a, I don't know, placeholder, I guess. And it's called I'm Sorry for What I Said When I'm sorry for what you said when I tried to wake you up. Because it was a little sleep mask that I had that said that on it. But I thought it was kind of cool for the title of the thing. Anyway, so in the documentary, I was uploading videos and screenshots and my own personal videos. And I was thinking, like, what the heck? And I kind of put all of the videos in order. And during that time, I saw Jude on TikTok. And it was so fascinating because you got an incredible story, Jude, and I can't wait for the listeners to hear about this. And for Eric, too. I mean, I briefed him a little bit, but he's not quite up to speed with what we've been talking about. So really, really pumped for everybody to hear this. But I actually featured Jude in my documentary as one of her videos was so hard-hitting for people that were questioning what's going on that I actually put it in there, and now you're on the show, so I'm just so grateful to have you here. I mean, it's a blessing, and you're doing some really incredible work, so welcome to the show, Jude.
Thank you so much. That's really sweet. I appreciate that. Yeah, it's been like 2 years, but it's still so weird that people they come to me and they're like, oh my gosh, I've been following their story. Like, it's so crazy. I can't believe it. Blah, blah, blah. My friend followed you and this and this. And I'm like, that's cute. Thank you. Like, I don't know. It's just like, I don't know how to react. I'm just like, thanks. There've been like, we've made some friends along the way too. Like it's funny because I'm sort of skipping around, but like, someone recognized my partner and I literally out on the street. and we ended up becoming friends, and then he ended up being my husband's like guitar teacher, basically.
Oh,
Like he's like,
that's wild.
Judith! Yeah, so it's been a really strange experience. But basically, backing up in 2020, at the beginning of 2020, anyways, I considered myself more or less like a liberal Democrat, and I had some other stuff going on, and I was working at a dispensary in Phoenix, and we had just started to go recreational, and then the pandemic, kicked in, and it kind of ruined everything for me. Like what I liked about being a dispensary agent was like, mostly when it was medical, I liked the aspect of like someone coming up to you and figuring out what they need and what they need it for, and like recommending dosages and having a whole conversation with them, like someone who cares. And the pandemic took all that away from me, and we basically went straight to go orders only. People were just kind of coming, paying, and leaving, and I was really bummed out. And I'd also like, I hadn't had a super good experience in the industry along the way, so this was kind of like the nail in the coffin for me. I was like, and the other thing is they were like going along with whatever Big Pharma was saying. They were making us wear masks, wear gloves, douse everything in alcohol, like constantly. And I had just a laundry list of reasons why I just ended up quitting, because I didn't understand the things anymore. And I was just really like, I was angry all the time, and I was depressed. I mean, I wasn't in a good relationship either. That had a huge part in it, but it was going nowhere. Everything was going nowhere for me. And I just quit and decided to just like live on savings for a little bit while I figured out what was going on, So then I was like doing research. I was watching documentaries, and it started with the BLM stuff, because I had been in support of all that. I had been going to a few protests with like an acquaintance that I met through the dispensary, just to like show my support. And we had been, he'd been supportive for me going into the studio, because I was making music as like, it was sort of a form of therapy. Looking back now, I think it was just kind of how I got through that time, because I don't relate to it anymore, not the stuff I used to make. But so I started to study like the whole movement of BLM, and I found this one documentary about the LA riots in the 90s and like the Rodney King incident and all of that. And I was like, this is a pattern. It's literally a pattern, and it shows up on election years. So I kind of started to put two and two together, and like I was tracing the money, and everything led back to like this being funded by like George Soros, who seems to fund both sides of whatever benefits him the most. And the whole Act Blue Foundation, the Democrats, and all the people within BLM were starting to come out as like black witches, like dark witches, evil witches, and like admitting that they worked with black magic. And then there was Charles Wade, who was found in connection to human trafficking. He was like high up on the BLM chain, and everything just like fell apart. I was like, what is this? Like, it's deception.
Because
And
you
it
were
was
at
all,
the protests and stuff, right? You were actually there, and you were.
I went to a few in Phoenix, and they just didn't feel right, they felt like they were just going nowhere. Like the police expected people to come out, they came out, rah rah rah, they go home. The police intimidating people, trying to put up blockades and weird stuff. It just felt like a play. I don't know how to explain it. Like everybody knew their roles, they were all played out, and everybody went home, and eventually it just kind of faded out. Like obviously we had this huge summer of like violent riots, people burning and looting and hurting people.
Summer of love.
And yeah, it just started to get into my brain that like something was really wrong here. And then I was watching like the Epstein stuff come apart, and everyone was talking about how Epstein didn't kill himself. There's no way. And then I learned about how like the mainstream media covered up for him largely. I don't know if you guys ever watched The Patriot Act by Hassan Minhaj, I think it was.
I haven't seen that.
Can't say I have.
He had his own like sort of like news commentary show, right? So he had this one episode that broke down how the media covers for pedophiles. And his show was canceled. So if that tells you anything, check that out, because that was like, I could see where his show was going, and I was like, this is getting intense. And then he couldn't have the show anymore. I was like, oh.
Wow.
Okay.
So his account was taken down, or what happened?
The show, it was Netflix. It was on Netflix.
Oh,
He
wow.
was a big deal. He's a comedian. Like, his show got taken down. So
Wow.
I was like,
Can't have that
that
on
is
Netflix.
crazy. No, so then I started like looking around and following other people who were in my situation who were just like doing research. And I followed this one girl, I think her name is Kelsey Cordes. She helped me learn some things as well. But there was this one TikTok video of hers, and all it was, right, was her crying and peeling off the sticker from her water bottle of Obama and Biden looking like really chummy. And her account was suspended right after that video. I
For
was like,
what?
what? Don't know. Like, I was following her videos and she was like learning, she was trying to tell people that like nothing was as it seems, blah, blah, blah. She just learned something really big about Biden and Obama. She was like taking away her support from them, and then her account was taken down.
So
So
when
it's
you
like,
were looking at this, were you still a Democrat at that point?
by that point, I was like not not really feeling it. I think I had already gone and changed my status to independent. I never really went full Republican. Some people thought I did, but I just wanted to learn more about them, and then I did find that my views are now considered more conservative, but I think it's because the political spectrum has shifted so just
Mm,
insane that
polarized.
conservative views are now everything's being labeled as alt-right or far right, and I just think that's very, very incorrect and
Yeah.
just not okay to just like dismiss things like that. But yeah, so basically all of my ideals started to turn inside out because nothing was as it seemed. Everything seemed to be like kind of a lie, and literally all of my beliefs unraveled. I went from like pro-choice to being more pro-life because I learned the history of Planned Parenthood, Margaret Sanger, and there's too much out there about human trafficking, child trafficking. They caught Planned Parenthood harvesting babies. Like, I saw a video, it was horrific and disgusting, and I was like, I suddenly value human life way more than I used to. It was so disturbing. I
Right.
was like, I'm pretty sure that they're this is their sacrifice. This is their
So
human
do you think that
sacrifice.
they were related, like the abortions and the baby parts?
They
How do
were
you think they were
selling
doing?
them. They Planned Parenthood was caught like selling baby parts.
What?
Like, that is what your tax dollars are going towards. They make money from these abortions. They want you to
Which
get that. So I just became like very anti don't get it unless you absolutely have to kind of stance, because I was like, this is a business for them. They are harvesting us. So I was like, okay, let's reel it back. And there was more. It just kind of kept going. I just kept learning things as the months went on, and then I met someone new, and he was in the UK, and like I didn't, we were just talking, and then I
Represent.
was like, yeah, yeah, and but he ended up changing my whole perspective on things too, and it, I mean, the list goes on. I learned stuff about Nickelodeon and how there's Dan Schneider is a pedophile and he's like made kids act things out in shows. That's why Nickelodeon at one point had a foot, because he's got a foot fetish, and he made Ariana Grande suck her toes in an episode for
Oh,
his own amusement. So it just goes on and on. Pedophiles are all in high places. I don't know how people don't believe when we're trying to say, hey, the world is literally run by satanic pedophiles. It sounds crazy, but it's true. The more I learned, the more I was like, oh, a lot of them are like straight up, they're mad at God. They don't worship God. They believe in a different God. Like, I went into the spiritual, religious aspect of it. I was like, there's a whole thing in there too. There's a whole Pandora's box of, you know, Moloch worshiping garbage. And it's just kind of continued, and my whole life just turned upside down, and I ended up leaving the person I was with, and I had to move back home and just reset my entire life. And then he and I didn't know how we were going to be together because of the pandemic, and the travel restrictions were so intense, but I finally managed to get over there like last February. And
nice.
yeah, so we spent like a month together, and then I went home, and we were just like, what do we do? Because everything is so crazy. It was like, how are we going to make this work? We're 5,000 miles apart.
And Jude, how long did you know him before you guys were trying to say, like, let's figure it out? What was your timeline?
Um, we got married 6 months in.
Oh, wow. It's amazing.
Yeah,
you
it was
know,
honestly, that's how it felt. It was like, you are that person, let's do this. Because at that point, I was like, even if I just like, was dating again, I'm not messing around. I'm 30 years old now. I was like, I don't have time to like talk to people on Tinder. And plus there's like so much dishonesty and like hookup culture is disgusting. So I'm the kind of person that I was like, either you're like in it, or I can't talk to you because you're
All
so
or
far
nothing.
away. You know what I mean? Yeah. So he was like, no, me too. I was like, okay, great. So by like
Let's get hitched.
by May we actually found a solution. And because the travel restrictions said that like only your spouses could come and see you. So we figured out that we could actually get married online. There's a service that files for you online, and it's legal, and they do it through the States. So we did that real quick, and then I went to England and brought him back with me.
Oh,
And he's been here ever since. We filed for immigration status change a couple months in just to solidify it. And when you do that, you can't leave the country. So
amazing.
we've been just kind of waiting on that, and we started over. We've just been like slowly accumulating things together and just taking care of my family, because my mom needs a lot of help right now with her mother. Things are kind of going downhill with that. So I'm glad he's been here for me for that as well. He cooks too, so that's
there you go, bonus. Oh
yeah.
Wow. Oh, that's it. Congratulations. Go ahead,
Yeah,
Eric.
thank you. It's kind of wild.
Kind of going back a little bit, I know you touched on a lot of different points.
Yeah, sorry.
No, there's a lot.
That's
There's a
cool.
lot.
That's cool. Was there? I'm just curious if there was a distinct moment, an aha moment, or a specific story of something that happened that really, flipped that switch or solidified your resolve to switch. And if you're okay with sharing that.
That's a great question.
Yeah, no, I've actually used to tell this story when I was first like out, if you will.
What do
It
you
was
mean?
literally like a coming out. That's how it felt. It was like, so this when I was trying to like sort things out in my head, right? And I got it really spiritual with it. I was praying a lot, and I was like, I don't understand anything anymore, and I just want to know, and I want to move on with my life, and I need strength to do that. And I'm like, why am I so angry all the time? And I just wanted it all to go away. So I did this like really deep meditation, right? And I was like asking for guidance, asking for help. And I just felt this energy leave my body. I felt something like a weight leave my chest. And I couldn't stop crying. I just started like bawling. And I just had this feeling like it was time.
Oh, what
And
did it feel like? What was the thing that left you? What did that feel like?
Anger. It was like a depression and anger and like all the things that were keeping me like in this state of aggression.
Resentment.
It just started to leave, and I didn't feel as like combative or defensive or anything like that. And like, don't get me wrong, I'm a human being. Like, I still have my moments, but it's nothing like it used to be. So
and what was going on at that time in the world? Was it more on the, vote fraud, or was it more on the Epstein at that time, or was it more on the pandemic?
That was the summer of 2020. That was like the pandemic and everything. I was like, I just want to not be angry anymore. I want to figure out what's going on. I want to understand this, that, the other thing. And this weight just kind of lifted off of me. And I think I was telling you guys before I started recording, I had a few sort of weird experiences I can't really explain. That's one of them. But there was another right around that time. This is again in 2020.
Okay.
So, so you know that feeling when someone's watching you and you look over and you catch them looking at you? You just know, you feel it, right? Okay, so one night in my apartment, this is when I was in Phoenix still, obviously, I was just trying to go to bed, and I felt like someone was in the apartment. I was convinced that someone was like in there that shouldn't be in there. And the craziest thing is my apartment was so small, there was just no way. But I had that feeling of like 1,000 eyes on me. That feeling that someone is watching you was like multiplied. And I was like, what is in the apartment? And I was looking around, and I was like, what is this feeling? I was like, somebody is here, but they're not here. And I was getting really upset. I was like, I'm not crazy, I was like, I've just had to sit down and drink some water and like curl into a ball or whatever. I was just like, I don't get this. And then there was like this voice inside my head that said, they're coming.
Boy,
I
oh
was
my
like,
God.
what do you mean? So
I get it.
it was so upsetting that I couldn't even talk about it the next day without crying. I was like, something happened to me, you guys. Like, I don't know what it is. Someone was in my apartment and I don't know. Anyway, so that happened. The meditation happened. This something left me and all of my ideals started to change. And I also like was, doing some writing at the time, like just journaling in general. And I was like, I feel like I'm a messenger and I'm supposed to talk to a lot of people. And I also had an experience with psychedelics the one and only time that I tried them, literally around the same time. It was just a weird year, right? I was told that a lot of people were going to want to talk to me before this happened. So,
oh my God, that's so cool.
then I went viral, and then I went viral again when I posted that video of who I voted for, because I sort of like spite voted for Trump because I felt bad that I hadn't voted him before that, and I was like, screw it, you know what I mean?
So that was the second viral video. What was the first?
Yeah. The first one was when I was in the car and I was like, it might be possible that Hillary Clinton actually is evil and Trump knew what he was talking about. I was like, I don't, I was just, you could tell that I was shocked. And I was like, look, I really used to hate him so much. You have no idea. Like, for me to be saying this is a big deal. So that was what the video was about. Basically, I was like, I think I try not to talk like this anymore, but I said something like, I would have pissed in his coffee for free. You know what I mean? Like, that's where I was at. Like, people
that was
don't get it.
pre stuff leaving your body.
Yeah.
Yes, it was. So, but no, seriously, everything about me basically changed after that. And it was like this succession of supernatural events. And then my partner also has this like supernatural connection of weird stuff that happens to him too. And it started happening while we were getting together, and we were getting like messages on what we should do about our relationship. And he had this dream about two rings connecting and a sword going through it. And he was like, we have to find out how to get married and like do this for real. So it's been a weird trip, you guys. Like,
yeah, it sounds it.
It's been a trip. So like my life right now is very much just like, I'm focused on my marriage. We're focused on God. We're taking care of my family. We're just kind of living life. But every now and then I get sucked into little rabbit holes, and then I'm trying to stay connected with what's going on right now. And I have my own little podcast that I run like a few times a week if I can, and where I just kind of like tell people what's been going on, because even in just the last 2 weeks, it's like we've experienced years of events, and it's honestly, it's wacky when you lay it all out and you say it out loud. You're like, that's just since June 24th. Oh, okay. Like.
So the past 2 years
go ahead, man.
Like 5 to 10 yeyear period. 100%.
The last 2 years have felt like a decade.
Yeah. Seriously.
Yeah.
I saw a meme.
Person.
There was a meme that was like, these weekends are starting to feel like half-hour lunch breaks, and I was like, I totally feel that on a deep level. Yeah, it's like the weekend just goes boop, and then you're back. So okay, I wanna summarize this whole thing. So basically, for the listeners, what you're saying is that you were a Democrat. You were going to protests. You were mingling with obviously your people. That's just the way that it is. And then you started to research some things, and your eyes were open, and then you started having some really interesting synchronicities and prophetic imagery and all these kind of crazy stuff. And now basically you are an online influencer, researching and showing people what you're finding out basically. And I think the idea behind it is the truth seeking. So I want to ask you actually about your process. Like, how do you do your research? Because I know it's one of those things that both sides, because unfortunately we're on, it's polarized, right? So it's like the people on the people on the right say, like, you should do your research, and then the people on the left go, oh, do your research. It's like this whole thing.
Trust the science.
Yeah. So how do you do your research? Like, what's the way that people should look into stuff? Because obviously I'm hearing stuff about Google. I'm hearing stuff about like even DuckDuckGo. Like,
I know.
At some points you think you're safe, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, your stuff is being tailored. So yeah, I'd love to hear about that.
Well, a couple of things. So I always tell people to use multiple search engines. Like, don't just Google it. Obviously, that's a problem. And even DuckDuckGo is a little stilled out because I believe they're bought by Google. But I still get different search results when I use them. So
Mhm.
it's worth trying just to see what pops up. But there's also Ecosia.org, there's Brave, there's other options, there's other search engines. I also tell people to read multiple articles on the same thing. Double check like where they're coming from, what news source they're from, because a lot of times they're just under the same umbrella and they're all owned by the same company.
Corporation.
Yeah. So, and then I also follow a lot of people who watch what's happening and they throw in their own 2 cents and they all have different perspectives. So if you combine all of that, it can help. And then obviously when you watch a documentary, it's not, you can't always just trust just that documentary. Maybe there's another one on the same topic, but that's always what I tell people is just read several things, and then I wait to react to like a major event for several days, because usually information comes out, things change. You want to, I would say, give it 48 hours, before you go, this thing just happened, it's totally true, and then a few days later, next thing you know, they're retracting it or changing the information. So
The
I try
sizzle
not to talk
first
about stuff that I don't
and
know, but yeah, and so I try not to talk about stuff that may or may not be true, or I just stick to like the main things that are definitely happening, even if the information is like kind of muddled. Do you know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, because I mean, it is like we said on previous podcasts, it's to the point where it's really difficult to know who to believe, what to believe, and who to
Mhm.
trust, because there's all these people pretending to be something they're not on the
Yeah,
for lack of a better term, on the good side and on the
yeah,
bad side. Like there's people on both
yeah,
sides, and it's really so difficult to know what's real. And like you were saying about letting things sizzle, or Eric was saying, or
yeah.
Josh, we should say. This is Josh and Josh. You know, I'm not going to edit your name out because I happen to love my name. So
Josh and Josh,
it's
aka
the
Eric,
Josh and
the
Josh
other
room.
Josh.
the Josh.
Your name is
So
now Josh.
exactly for the show. There we go. So yeah, it's so crazy that uh, you were talking about the sizzle, and that you have to let things kind of happen and then wait 48 hours and then kind of see if it's still true. So actually, we were guilty of that because in
Mhm.
Canada we just had an outage of
Yeah, I heard
Rogers,
about that.
our provider. Yeah, and it was all
Right.
across Canada. And I woke up in the morning. I just got paid. And I was
Oh,
like,
wow.
okay, I'm going to do my e-transfer for my rent. I'm going to pay a couple bills. I was still laying in bed. And then I opened my bank in and it had a bunch of weird shit over it. And it was like, and then I went to do an e-transfer and it told me that it was going to cost me $5. I was like, well, that's not a thing. And then I opened my contacts. There was no one there. I'm like, okay, something's up with my banking. Went to use my
Yeah.
debit card and my debit card got declined. And I was like, well, I haven't
Right.
even paid my bills. So I know there's money on it because I wasn't able
Oh
to do that.
no.
And then I went to
Yeah.
get coffee and I tried to post on, I'm still on Facebook because I try to, I've got a lot of family and friends on there and I just kind of post a little bit of,
Mhm.
a little bit of something, trying to
Yeah.
be kind of like a lighthouse for people who are lost, because I think that, as
Yeah.
we're saying, it's
Same.
very difficult to discern. But anyway, so
Yeah.
yeah, and then I realized Timmy's was down, and everybody's going, "Oh, is this like the 10 days of darkness, or is this going to be like whatever?" Because there's lots of prophecy about communication blackouts and things
Yeah.
going on that's gonna
Yeah.
but what's really interesting is that I saw a post that there was a court case that was due to happen on that day, and it was something to do with the Maxwell trial. So I was like, I'm not sure, like, what came first, the chicken or the egg? Was there
Right.
actually
Oh
an
no.
outage, or like was it something that happened so as they could prevent? I don't know. Anyway, so
Yeah.
it just reminded me when you were saying
Yeah.
about letting things sizzle, because the day after it was back online. So I was like,
Yeah.
something's fishy.
I know. I feel like they use those opportunities to maybe like revamp something or do something like real quick, you know what I mean, before everything goes back online. But well, there's no way of knowing, you know.
No.
It's just one of those things. But didn't you guys just have a bank outage in February too?
Yep, we did, because we had
Yeah,
the trucker convoy,
that's
and
right.
lots of people were donating to the truckers, and then their bank accounts were leaked with their address. This is something that I did see. I actually downloaded the list because I was curious to see if it was real, and
Yeah.
literally it opened Google Maps. It was like a document, and it opened Google Maps, and it showed me every single person that donated, where they lived, how much, and their message to the donation. So a huge breach of privacy. And then obviously people were having their bank accounts shut down and all these kind of things, which is just, it's kind of, even with the internet going down on Friday, it just shows you how brittle and fragile our system is right now, because you lose internet for one day and everything starts to shut down. Think about if we lose it for a week or whatever, it's going to be pretty intense, I think.
We can't even handle a couple hours.
I know.
Well, they've done a good job at getting us hooked on the tech, right? And because if you think about it, as humanity, we've gone way longer without it than with it. So you'd think that it would be in our essence or in our DNA to be able to survive without it. But they've done such a good job for the past, 40, 50 years at just making technology just go.
Do you have a ghost over there, Josh? What's happening?
Just
probably. Yeah, let's put this
and then
back
Justin Castro was talking about coming after the crypto account and stuff like that, and that's when I said, okay, that's it.
Justin Castro.
Time out.
There are a lot of hints at this digital currency coming in. Do you guys know about ISO 222 and like this whole rumored reset? Okay, please. So forgive me if I'm not extremely well versed, but they are working towards making this a thing, more or less. Like in layman's terms, it is coming. I think it's inevitable, and they are working on it right now. If you want to look up the case between the SEC and Ripple and XRP and everything happening with that, I would start there. It's pretty interesting. And there's rumor that
good or
Bitcoin
bad for XRP?
I believe it's a good thing. I believe that SEC will lose because I just don't think they have it. Do you know what I mean? I think they've really screwed themselves over a couple times. But again, right now I probably can't put it into words, but it's something that I've been following over time because like I said, I think it's inevitable. And I think the people who want to try to hold on to cash, I don't think it's going to work out. I think cash is going to be, God, they're trying to do away with it. And even if you pull it out of your bank, it's not going to be worth anything when the time comes. Do you know what I mean?
I always say that gold and silver, there's a finite resource. It's like they can't make more of it or less of it unless you take it off the planet. But anyway, that's a whole different story. And like there are three things I know: that gold and silver is not going anywhere, the internet's not going anywhere, and cash and fiat currency. I think it's going to go the way of the dodo, because I think that really, and this kind of draws me into what we're doing here with Mega as well, is that we believe that everything's going to go back to more traditional values as well as new values as well.
The gold standard.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So it's going to be the golden age, literally. And it will be trading and bartering skills and sharing knowledge and saying, you know what, like I'll teach you how to sing if you teach me the guitar, and trading.
Value backed.
Yeah,
value
absolutely.
backed.
Yeah. Instead of just the rat race.
For sure. So I think that what they want to do with this digital currency is make it backed by gold and silver, to sort of more or less reset everything, because inflation's like the worst it's ever been since like 1981 over here. We had a 9.1 increase in June alone, which was more than they thought it would be. They thought it'd be 8.8, but it's higher. So that's not going to stop. And I don't know if you guys saw what happened in Sri Lanka, but they had enough in Sri Lanka. They've all organized because of everything that's going on with them. Inflation, gas
prices. Tell our listeners, Jude. Tell them what happened.
I mean, Sri Lanka pretty much stormed their president's building. They had enough. They were rebelling against what's going on with the government. They didn't like it. And it was so organized and just like so many people showed up that even the military and police they couldn't do anything about it. Some of them even joined in. And they were all like, they broke in and they were like swimming in the president's pool.
They jumped in the pool.
And they got in. So they got inside, and it was like their own version of January 6th, but probably crazier. They actually drove the leader out. So
they stepped down. They agreed to step down.
And I believe they have fled. I believe they fled, and Sri Lanka is now under an emergency act. So,
oh man.
So about that, it's kind of like the trucker convoy, but on steroids, right?
Yeah.
Two specific moments that show people that we far outnumber them
We do.
And that if so long as we stick together and we dictate what we want and push away what we do not want, that we can, we can get our way, for lack of a better term. We can get what we want. We just have to stand together and band together. So I don't even know if mainstream is covering what's happening in Sri Lanka, even if they're twisting it or whatever, as long as they're showing it.
Yeah.
Hopefully
I think
waking
it's
up.
on Twitter. I believe it's been trending.
You mean this Twitter? Boom.
Wow.
At
Yeah, that's my
Judith Rose
Twitter.
91 for those listening.
Yeah.
At Judith Rose
They
91.
suspended my first account. They suspended all of my
Why?
original accounts.
Tell us
I
what happened.
believe so when I went viral, right? It happened very, very quickly. I had someone named Elle post my first video. We're still in touch. She still is on my TikTok. We message every now and then. But
Cool.
so
You mean
I went
this
viral in like a
TikTok
week.
feed?
That TikTok. That is actually, that's not my original TikTok either. That's my secondary
Oh
account because
no.
Oh boy.
they suspended me across the board. So I grew to
Oh,
like
God.
45,000 on TikTok before they took that away. I grew to over 50,000 on TikTok, on Twitter, before they threw that down. And I had about 30,000 on Instagram before they took that away as well. My original account
Wow.
I had for years, they deleted it. So
Of course.
I believe it was to cover my process and my progress and what happened and what I actually used to post versus what I started posting. You cannot see my transformation, my actual flip, no longer on the internet because they don't want you to see it.
Wow.
So,
So you have to
that's
just
fun.
tell the story now instead on
I have
sources and
some,
outlets like this.
yeah. I still have some like older videos, and I believe I still have proof that I went to the BLM protests and stuff like that. And I have one of my oldest friends, she can vouch for me as well. We've known each other since high school, so I have witnesses. Okay. But
And for
yeah,
those
it was actually crazy when that started happening and they started taking my accounts down. I was like, you mother. I see you. I was like, oh, I get it. But you know what? They haven't really done anything to me since then. All they do is shadow ban me and give me like warnings, and then people can't tag me on Instagram for like 30 days at a time. But I kind of just keep trucking. I don't bother making a backup on backup on backup. I don't have time. And I also don't have time to be on like 8 social media platforms. Cause when I first got out and went viral, I was like trying to figure out what to do with my platform. And I tried all these different things. And I kind of had to figure out more or less through trial and error, like what I had energy for, what I had time for, what I could do as a creator. I couldn't immediately have like all this amazing equipment and do all these things. So I had to just kind of like figure it out. And I've been figuring it out since then, So that's why I started a little podcast recently, because I still wanted to kind of keep going. But I did take a pretty big break, and every once in a while I take a break just to like focus on my personal life. And
Good.
because that's just more important, than social media. And, I just got married too. So like that was really important to me. I didn't want social media to become between us. Like every once in a while we talk about it, we take a break. And now I'm like helping him with his videos and he's very supportive of me. So we just had to figure out a balance with that too.
What kind of videos does he make?
Wild. So right now, Matt is addressing the trans community because he is trans.
Okay.
So, and he's very against the indoctrination and grooming of children right now. He believes that they shouldn't really be learning these things about gender identities and sexualities, not when they're like age 9. Do you know what I mean? Like there's really no need for it. So, but if you want to check out his videos, he's the UK Patriot, or It's Matt Ray. And you can usually find him through my account too. It's pretty easy. But we also do this like fake news skit together where we do satire news. And that's really fun. that we did that recently. We took a break from that as well. But yeah, we did another one and it was fun.
Amazing.
We like to just like make fun of the news. But yeah, he's just getting a lot of questions. He's talking to like concerned parents that like don't know how to deal with their child and like how do they be educational without being too pushy, or like like finding that fine line between like accepting their child and not allowing them to make any physical changes until they've actually developed properly.
So you guys have such an interesting dynamic then, and really an incredible voice right now, coming as a previous Democrat and being married to a transgender male. Because I'm kind of
the UK.
From the UK, there you go. Yeah. So and he's out there, talking about the indoctrination, as you were saying, and all these kind of things. So together, it's you're a power couple. It's pretty incredible.
could say. Yeah,
Yeah.
I definitely think we were strong on our own, and he messaged me because he had already gone viral and he was doing like a show with this guy who ended up being a huge bully, and we kind of had to deal with that.
Okay.
That definitely, we took a break from the internet when that happened because he basically outed Matt before Matt really came out with that. He just wanted
Oh.
to he just wanted to talk to people about like truth and conspiracy theories. He hadn't really like told anyone. It wasn't on his profile. But once we started our own thing together and this guy kind of felt like pushed out by me, I was like the Yoko Ono to their Beatles in his mind, which is just ridiculous. I won't go into it. But
Who's the Beatles?
so he started talking about us on his lives, and we didn't know, we weren't looking for it, but somebody messaged us some clips, and I was like, because he's literally like, oh, I don't know if they're both trans or what, but Matt definitely is, and blah, blah, blah. And he was just using his platform to talk about us and like talk
What?
down about us. And I was like, really? You're like a 50-something-year-old man. This is how you're using your time? And this was after a super fake apology and well wishes on his own podcast that like, him and Matt weren't going to work together anymore. Wish you well, all these things. Next thing we know, he's trashing us. So I've had a lot of like drama in the truth community, which is why like sometimes I just disappear because I'm like, this isn't worth it. And maybe you're not who I thought you were. And I'm going to go away for a while.
I feel like this is a trend that will be happening more and more, where I think we're going to have to learn to trim the dead branches.
Yeah.
And
I've had you several times in the last 2 years.
Whether we want to or not, I feel like people are going to be driven to pick a side in the most positive way possible. It's either you want to remain with the old mentality and the old, thoughts, or you want to kind of upgrade and evolve and move into a place of, higher vibration and love and courage and enlightenment, or you want to stay stuck behind. And I know that personally, it's been a very transformative few weeks, and anytime a negative situation happens, the very first thing that comes into my mind is somewhere in there is an opportunity. And I don't see it just yet, but there is an opportunity. And then come to find a few days later that like, holy shit, I'm so glad that happened, because now we're here and this and that. And I feel like more and more of this is going to happen. What are your thoughts?
No, I definitely think it's a mentality. I tell people who ask me, like, how did you get past all of this? Like, how did you move on past this sort of more or less like liberal progressive mindset and like reel it back, and admit that you were wrong and like you were kind of teetering on that edge. And I was like, you really have to be willing to admit that you're wrong. And like, it's all humility and just being like, okay, I want to change. I need to change. Probably I'm very unhappy. So there's obviously something going on here. Where are my opinions coming from? Are they mine? Do I really feel this way about these issues? And then, like you said, it's choosing your energy. Are you going to waste that energy being negative, or are you going to focus on putting positive energy out? So that's what it came down to for me. And it became easier to see people in general and just read people in general, because I could see whether or not they were being positive or negative or egotistical or arrogant or loving and accepting, or judgmental or whatever. And I'm like, I know that people are flawed, and occasionally they're not going to be perfect, and they're going to do something that you might not like, and that's okay. And we can still be friends if we disagree on things. But then there's the crossing the line and being a bully and just being like over the top and trying to twist people's words because you want to, and like using your platform to talk badly about other people is obviously super like low vibrational. So that definitely
Democrat Party.
Yeah. So you just don't really see Democrats or Republicans flipping to Democrat. I mean, like not like that, and I think, I don't know, I saw a video of one girl who claimed that that's what she was doing. She was leaning left, and I was like, that's got to be a joke, at this point. Like it's a joke, because like, even though the Republican Party is not perfect or anything, like, and I consider myself more like central and like independent, I still feel like I agree with them way more than I used to, because the spectrum's shifted so much that this progressivism is really more like Marxism or communism. And I'm told it pretty much always has been, and it's been pushing people towards this like hive mind of accept everything or else. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's the problem, is it's just like, accept our pronouns, accept that biology doesn't exist anymore, accept this, accept our crazy, accept, these people in government. It doesn't matter if they don't look professional, just accept them, like push, 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 push. So that definitely got me, to a whole different place, because it was like, I don't accept this anymore. I just
Right.
don't. They've crossed the line. It's crazy.
Yeah, I
So
mean, it is. It's pretty wild. All of the. I mean, and really, this is for both sides. Like both
yeah,
people, on the left and the right. Like they, I always say, as crazy as people on the right think that the left are looking at the right, saying, "Oh my God, you guys are whacked." And I
right.
really think that that is by design, and that's really what we're
Oh,
trying
yeah.
to do with this, to bring people together and
Yeah.
to realize that there's huge opportunity in bringing community back, and actually, as you say, just kind of taking things for face value and doing a little bit using discernment, seeing how
Mhm.
you feel about something. Are these opinions actually my own, or whose are they? Because I had
Yeah.
a similar experience in terms of questioning my opinions, because yeah, there were certain people in the political sphere that I looked at and I hated, and then I was like, where is this coming from? And then all of a sudden, I started to look into things, and I recognized that it wasn't as I first thought it was. So yeah, really, really wild times. But I want to go really quick into. So obviously, this was a huge moment for you. There's a huge awakening, and your life has completely changed, and nobody could
Yeah.
ever have predicted. Well, I guess you did predict some of it,
I
really.
sort of did. I don't know how, but I did. Yeah.
Yeah, pretty crazy. So I'm wondering, what's the greatest thing that you've experienced since this whole awakening?
Probably meeting Matt and like unexpectedly having a wedding ceremony in England near Knowlton Henge. Like
Wow.
I basically, like, because we, more or less were like rushing into it. I mean, admittedly, we wanted to just, like, this was what we were deciding. We were going to just do it. So I went to England and everyone was like wanting to celebrate because, like, we got married. And so his landlord threw us a free wedding.
What?
And like, yeah,
Cool.
like
Wow.
Story.
we literally went around town inviting people in person. It was like the cutest thing. And this woman from a shop showed up and brought her kids, and like a bunch of his friends were there, and I was like, this is so amazing. Like, I never thought that this would ever happen to me. Like, so I had this little wedding in front of these like ancient ruins in England, and I was like, what? Like, so that was probably the craziest thing. I have some pictures, and then we went to Stonehenge together before we went home. It's just like,
What do you think about
what?
Stonehenge? Like, what even is that? Like, where did it come from?
Oh
How did
man,
And are
I
they gonna
can't
blow
figure
up
out
the
whether or
wall?
not it's fake or it was made by giants or what. Like, I don't quite know, but there is for sure an energy out there.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's just, that's a question mark for me for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I do believe that there were giants and they are finding giant skeletons. So it makes
Mm.
more sense that these large beings were able to pick these stones up and move them. But yeah, I think that's
Wow.
up in the air. And then I've
Yeah.
heard people say, "Oh, they're just made of concrete. They're totally fake." And I'm just like, there's no
With
proof
the
of that
Sorry,
either.
styrofoam inside.
Yeah, I don't know. Nobody knows.
you said you've been to visit the Stonehenge,
Yeah.
and you said there was an energy.
Hmm.
Uh, how would you describe that energy? Heavy, dense, dark energy, or
Like,
positive light,
more like
good?
this sort of somewhere in between, to be honest. It was sort of this like
Okay.
mishmash of light and dark, this sort of like mystical, not really sure, sort of
Mm.
Do
spooky
you think that
feeling. I don't know how to explain it.
Do you think that energy could, in your opinion, do you think that energy could affect different people in different ways depending on what their energy was?
Yeah.
Like to a
Yeah.
happy person?
This is what I've noticed for sure, like spiritually, as someone who's like really embraced that side of myself and then is like trying to get closer to God and praying more and just trying to understand it all. I recognize the way that I used to be, and I basically recoiled from what most people would consider like holy things, which is why I think this thing that left my body was maybe demonic. And it was
Mm.
like keeping me down more or less, because I think spiritually a lot of times, like, that mysterious depression that's holding you down that you can't figure out where it's coming from. Some part of me thinks it's like demonic entities that are like
Mhm.
gripping you because they know what you're supposed to do. Do you
Mm.
know what I mean? And the way that my life changed after that sort of confirmed it for me. You know, I'm talking to a lot of people, I'm making a big difference, and just shedding light on things. So I was like, maybe that thing literally like was forced out, and that's what pushed me forward. So because I was reacting like I would like cringe when someone said the word blessed. Do you know what I mean? And I think
Exactly.
that that was like a huge reflection of something that was like haunting me, because like
So weird.
there's no need for that. Do you know what I mean? Like, and I feel completely differently about that now. So I definitely think that depending on what's going on with you, you certainly respond to energy in a different way.
Well, even when
Dig it.
somebody comes into a room, you can sense if they're, like you said earlier, when
Mhm.
you meet people and you can tell if they're trying to
Yeah.
be on like positive or not positive. So you can feel, well, if someone's in a really bad mood and they walk into a room, they're
You
like
can
an
tell.
energy vampire. Yeah, 100%
Yeah.
you can tell. Yeah, and same with somebody who's full of energy. Hey guys, how's it going? You know,
Yeah.
and they come
They're
in and
like
you're
this
like, oh,
light.
this looks
And
like a
if
cool
you're having a
person.
bad day, you're kind of like, screw you, you know?
Yeah, yeah, just like, oh, stop being so bloody positive, you know. It's just like, oh, all right,
Yeah.
we get it, we get it.
Because it like
It's like,
disturbs
oh.
the energy of people who are dealing with different kind of energy.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, for sure.
Again, I think it's gonna force people to pick a
Yeah.
side. You
Well,
want to
it's like
stay in that.
voting for how
Mhm.
you feel. You know, it's like, sorry,
Mhm.
Eric, go ahead.
No, I mean, I was just touching back on you're either gonna want to stick with that denser, lower energy, or you're gonna decide to make the change and or stay in that positive, light, fun feeling. So
Yeah. And I think
it's
that does
unfortunate.
take that takes dedication as well.
Yeah.
Like you can also like slip back and just, not, because like I said, like it's not as though I was totally cured, and I still have my moments where I'm like, I don't really know if I'm doing the right thing right now. And, it's, human being stuff, but I feel like I can deal with it so much better just ever
Mm.
since my awakening. And since I'm in prayer and actually reading the Bible. And I feel like I'm starting to understand like how to hear the voice of God. I know that sounds crazy, but, I
Nothing
just told a
sounds
little
crazy nowadays.
story. No, I know. I was just telling this story today on my TikTok. I kind of had this moment the other day, or like last week or so, when I had a cold, and you know how when you're sick, you just like get sad easier and everything kind of, you're just like, I don't feel good, and you just, you know what I mean? I was in one of those modes where I was like, and I was just like, everything's hard and I don't feel good and I'm sick. And I had been looking in my car for tissues because I was like occasionally, just going out to take my husband somewhere. He can't drive here yet, so we mostly do everything together. But I had to go somewhere, and I had already been looking for tissues in my car. I didn't think I had any, and I like really needed one because I was just like, I want to cry, but I feel stupid that I want to cry. And I heard this voice that was like, reach into the back of your glove box because there's something there for you. And so I was like, okay. So I reached back there, and there's this pack of tissues that I couldn't find earlier, that I didn't even know I had, that I didn't remember buying. And I was like, thanks. And I was kind of like laughing while I was crying because I was like, that was really weird. And
That was really weird.
yeah, so that this voice was just like, you're fine. It's okay to just cry. I know things are kind of like strange right now and you're waiting. It's okay. And so I had to take my glasses off, and I'm like kind of crying and my vision's really bad. And he's like, this voice that said, look up. And I look up, and my vision's so bad that all I see is this big wooden cross. And I was like, huh. So I put my glasses on, and it's a tow truck.
Oh,
And it's the cross is like coming down to pick up the car next to me.
Mm,
And he's like, I know you feel like that car right now, but I got you. I got you covered.
wow.
I was like,
That's incredible.
yeah. So I was just like, I was like crying and laughing because I was like, what?
What's happening?
Yeah. But I've had so many moments in the past couple of years where something has like spoken to me directly, and it seems to speak to Matt as well. And we're like in touch with this spirit more or less, and we pray all the
amazing.
time about it, because when it comes to like that sort of thing, I believe you need to test spirits. I think the spiritual world is totally real, but you have to be so
Mhm.
careful. And I think
Mm.
that, no offense to mediums, but I think they're channeling things that aren't necessarily like who they say they are. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean,
So
it's like that in the real world. So why would
yeah,
it not be like that in the spiritual world? You know, I mean, if we are these energies and we are able to travel to different dimensions, then
yeah,
you would still be able to have the same intention. I think it's all about intention. Really, that's
yeah,
a really big word for
yeah.
us here. So, Jude, speaking of intention, why are you
Mhm.
so determined to share your knowledge with people?
Well, I feel like people need it. I'm being the people tell me around semi regularly that I have this sort of like new glow about me, and they just sense it. So I'm like, okay, well, I want to spread that energy as much as I can because I just want people to feel what I feel this sense of peace, this connection to God and Source and Jesus Christ, that everything is going to be okay no matter what, even if things get a little crazy, you know. So I'm trying to just keep bringing that and working on myself at the same time so that I can, you know what I mean? Because if you can't take care of yourself, you can't spread positive energy. So I have to find that balance. But I think it's important because now is just really hard and confusing and dark. And I think people are really leaning towards their spirituality because they don't know what else to do. So I'm just trying to sort of show them more or less this direction. Um, because I feel like I found something. I'm onto something, you know, and I want to share that. So I tell people more often now. I'm working on being more brave about it, I guess. But
You're doing
you
a
know,
good
yeah,
job.
yeah. Thank you. So, like I said, when it comes to spirits, though, it's interesting when you mention Jesus. Some of them either get mad or disappear. So just a
Mm,
tip.
wow.
It's very odd. I experienced that myself, and when my husband was, he trained in mediumship in the UK, so
Mm,
he had to go through this whole like discovery of realizing that he was channeling not so good things, and when he started testing them, they all went away except for one, the one spirit, like the spirit, basically. So, but everything he was used to, like channeling and doing, completely changed. Everything changed when he started bringing
mm.
up Jesus and reading the Bible and asking them if if Jesus was God in the flesh. They disappeared.
Wow. And was the I hope you don't mind me asking because this is relatively new territory for me as well to be
Yeah,
talking about it, but was that
me
before his
too.
transition or after his
After,
transition? After. Okay.
after.
Wow. All right. So he went through his transition and then started to have these different experiences after getting more into the Bible and into God and Jesus, like you were saying,
Yeah.
um, and wow, yeah,
He
just
like
this world's
rediscovered his ability. It's weird. Yeah. I watched it happen in real time, like his transformation of how he was doing that because he predicted several things in my life personally, and then he has predicted a few things that happened outside of that. So that's been weird. I've been keeping track of that, but um yeah, that's more of a hush hush thing because people think that sounds really crazy, but I'm like, no, seriously, like I'm keeping track of it. It is real. It is happening. So just so you know, you know,
yeah.
it,
And
it's
and
bizarre
that's
though.
really that's still and I always talk to people about this is that you have to deal with facts, but
Mhm.
not just facts in terms of like, oh, 10% or blah blah blah. Like I'm talking,
Yeah.
did this happen? Yes or no?
Mhm.
When you
Yeah.
did this thing, was there a result? Yes or no? Or
Yeah.
did you have a vision or an experience and then it happened? Yes or no?
Yeah.
Well, yes. The fact is,
Yeah.
yes, I did. So you're actually just writing down those moments so as you actually have
Mhm.
data and information.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I can't
I
fault that at
I
all.
once tested this spirit because when we were kind of like when things were happening with him when he first moved here, that's when it got kind of intense because I think a lot changed for him. He obviously like left the UK to come here. So he was going through it and I was like praying because I was like, I don't want him to be possessed. I don't want to be near anything evil anymore. I don't want to do this, dude. If it's gonna be like if he's gonna be channeling demons or something, I don't want to deal with it. Do you know what I mean? So I was like, okay, look, if I was speaking to whatever spirit this is, and I was away from him. I was like, if you want me to really pay attention and do this, I need some sort of confirmation. I'm going to think of a really ridiculous phrase. And if I don't hear it in the next 2 days, I will assume that you are a demon. So the phrase was Fruit Loops. Totally random. Didn't say it out loud. Didn't tell my husband this at all.
Delicious. No, just
And
kidding.
within 24 hours, he said, "Why are they telling me Fruit Loops?"
Whoa.
He's like, why am I hearing the word Fruit Loop? I was like, so.
Oh my God, that's
So
insane.
that happened. Yeah. So
So that happened.
we've been on this little trip, and I'm just like the spiritual
That was a Tuesday.
secretary. That was a Tuesday for us. No, for real. Like that's like normal now. Well, I'm like, okay, what did they say? And I get my notes out because I don't know. You know what I mean? We've been better to keep track of it and actually see it in real time than to lose track of it and just say that he's crazy. I take it seriously because things have been happening. So, and now I'm getting my own version of it as well. I'm starting to tune in and realize what I'm hearing and like responding when he made, the tissues, like that was weird. So
yeah,
a lot of that.
I would say.
Inspirational, I would say.
100%.
So, I mean, I just feel like I'm on the right track and I just want to share that with people. And so, I'm getting in the habit of like posting when I open my Bible in the morning, I post some little page or something. I have this really pretty Bible called My Creative Bible. You can color it and take notes in it and stuff.
Oh, that's cool.
People always ask me where I got it. So it was a gift, but I got it online more or less. Like that's where you can get it. But yeah, it's been a strange time, you guys. Like the past 2 years, like I said, I'm a completely different person. I feel like I've lived like another decade. I have a whole different life, and we're just sort of like waiting to see what God does next.
I couldn't have said it more.
Thanks so much for sharing those stories because we were talking about how it takes courage and, setting intentions. And it just seems like the rest of the world is is cornered,
Yeah.
Therefore, the claws are coming out and it's getting tougher and tougher. But I think that if we persist and if we intend on just, operating in a higher frequency and getting in touch and I
There's
think
nothing wrong with that.
that that's the journey. And so long as we just keep moving forward, no matter the speed, forward is forward. And I think that the stories that you were able to share with us today are very inspirational, and they, hopefully to our listeners or viewers, it inspired somebody and it gave them the drive to want to keep going. And it sure did for me. So thanks for that.
Yeah, thank you.
That's great,
No,
man.
you're welcome, Eric. Thank you.
Or even if they're listening and they're thinking, "What is she talking about?" Like, I got to go check this
know,
out. I
and
got to
maybe
go
it
find
sounds
out.
like bananas. I don't know.
No. I'm talking like interested. Like, okay, I didn't know
general.
this. I didn't know this. Like, what is she talking about? Let me go and discover it. Let me use the different search engines like Brave and all these other things, right? And actually do some digging because you've had such a huge transformation in your life, and now you're using your voice to help other people to realize that there is another option. Because I think that people just go ahead in life thinking that they have to be a certain way, otherwise they'll get ostracized, or they have to appease to everybody, or they have to please everybody. But even with your hair, people must think that you're a Democrat, even still. But that's just showing us that we shouldn't judge people by their appearances because and I think you and I have even spoken about that, how people are still like, oh, you should dye your hair and stuff, and you're like, sure, I'll dye it pink or I'll dye it like
I'm
blue
like,
or whatever.
well, I say that every time someone tells me to change my hair, I buy another box of dye. So,
amazing. Yeah, so you're doing it's a good fit. It's good for them, it's good for you. They told you to dye your hair, you're like, okay, I will, and then you do. Jude, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. And for our listeners, if you're still with us, thank you so much for listening. We love you.
Absolutely.
Hope you're having a wonderful life, and we really appreciate you taking your time and sharing your time with us and hearing about Jude's incredible story. Eric, do you want to roll out some of the places that people can find Jude?
Sure. I think TikTok is probably your biggest, busiest channel, Jude.
I mean, I've been getting back into it for sure, but I go through periods where I just don't feel inspired to post, but I will like be commenting and like watching stuff. But I post on Instagram pretty regularly and Twitter.
Perfect.
Twitter at Judith Rose 91, yes. TikTok at Hey Judith Rose.
Yeah.
Also wanted to throw in there that if you connected with this episode or any other episode of the Mega Podcast and you wanted to join the Mega Network, just go to subscribepage.io/Mega App. A little plug for ourselves there, Josh. Other than that, I mean, I think Josh. We're all good. Yeah. You're welcome, Josh. Judith, it was a great pleasure to finally meet you and to, as I said, for you to share some of those stories. It was very inspiring. I thoroughly enjoyed it. And, perhaps if you're open, maybe we get you back on a little further on down the line and see what kind of progress or what kind of not visions, but what has happened from now till then, if you're open to that. So.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I definitely have even more to talk about with that too. I mean, one of the recent messages that we've been getting is a possibility of a mega tsunami on the east coast of America. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
Oh, wow.
Mega
real quick. Just real quick. No big deal.
With a cliffhanger. All right.
Yeah.
All right. Yes. Well, I'm definitely going to be one of those people who said, "What the heck is she talking about now? I got to go and research this. I got to go check it out."
I talk about it on my podcast as well, too.
Yeah, exactly. Actually, that's a great point. So you're doing the podcast right now. So I would love to be able to point people to that, and maybe you can touch on what it is. And then I've got one more question for you, which we ask for everybody. But before it, sorry, I move at 100 miles per hour with my mind sometimes as well. So I'm just like getting everything, in that I have to say. Going back to you coming back on the show, actually, Eric, Jude and I were talking on our discovery call. And we were saying that the possibility of a collaboration with Mr. Charlie Sansom and us and Jude, because obviously we're in Canada, Charlie's in the UK, and Jude's in America. So I think that would be a really interesting panel to have everybody on there talking about the current geopolitical sphere, anything that's happening, and that's, so look out for that. Jude, if you'd love to join us on that, we would love to have you. I mean, I think it would be a really incredible panel. So that's cool. But your podcast, how can people find your podcast? What's the best way to get to it?
So it's not as fancy as your guys set up here. I literally just do like audio recordings and I post those on my Patreon. But I do gather information on like recent events, and I occasionally do like a predictive programming episode where I will, like, for instance, the last one I did was on the Dark Crystals movie and series. And I broke down like the possible parallels to like certain conspiracy theories and like certain mythologies and like that sort of thing. Like possible predictive programming usually means that like some sort of truth is inserted into the media, and it's like hidden as fiction. Do you know what I mean? So I like to analyze that stuff a lot. I sort of bounce around on my podcast. I like to usually talk about the news, but sometimes I'll switch it up and be like, I just watched this movie or I rewatched this movie and I saw new things, and I share that kind of thing. And basically that's what it's going right now. It's just like 15 to 20 minutes at a time. I'm on episode like 26 or something. So
Patreon.com/Hey Judith Rose is the link for the listeners. Josh, one final question.
Yeah. So basically, everybody that comes on, we always ask them, because this is obviously it gives us a great idea of what you truly want. If you could change one thing on the planet, I know there are so many things that we could change, but if you could change just one thing, what would it be and why? It's a big one.
The government. I would make us have a good government that actually cared about us, and maybe just could like turn things around and act how they're supposed to act and tell us the truth. That would be fantastic.
And what would be the implications of having a good government?
If we actually lived in a world where like the government and the media and these companies actually told us the truth instead of just trying to like, take our money, I think the world would be a much better place. I think we'd actually have better like healthcare and all kinds of things, like, and our tax money would actually go where we need it. Roads would get fixed, efficiently, and we'd actually know where our tax dollars were going, that kind of thing. Open, honest policy.
I don't think that anybody really should disagree with that, to be honest with you. I think that's good government is really that's something that I think we should all strive for. So it would be a great, I mean, we've got some pretty big things coming up in the future. I think there's, we're at such a pivotal time in history, and there's so much happening, even just in a couple weeks, like the Georgia Guidestones and all the Biden stuff coming out. Oh my God, it's just
I just did a TikTok on a bunch of the events that have been happening since then, and it's unreal when you lay it all out.
It really is. Yeah. So, I mean, we would love to have you back on to talk about some of those things in the future. Jude, thank you so much. We really, really appreciate you being on the show. Eric, thank you, sir. Enjoy your trip to Nova Scotia. And,
thank you for having me, guys.
Of course. We'll see you guys on the next episode.